I'd like to this is just a short PowerPoint on the legacy of the ditch system. And I just wanted to get everybody sort of in the mood. Okay, so we'll get
where's that share screen button already?
there we go, and then you have to go up here.
Well, I'm not sharing yet.
Oh,
Where's the share screen button?
It's right at the bottom.
he's mousing frantically.
Yeah, it's hard to see sometimes.
So, okay.
Sorry. Why don't you just sit here?
Yeah, sit down.
Get comfortable, sir.
We got 2 extra chairs.
And then legacy.
Oh, we'll see how that, okay, I'll try that.
Okay, all right, so this is just what we've got here. We've got a legacy ditch system, and I'm just a firm believer that if we utilize nature within the ditch maintenance strategy, and they vary, each strategy varies, each ditch has their own elevation and their own personality, their own geology, their own aspect and exposure, neighborhoods, and everything. So each one is different. So if we look at this as a cultural landscape, and that we find the solutions within nature to help us fix the bad leaks, then I think that we'll be ahead in the long run, and we will sort of put a limit on unintended consequences when we work within nature. So you want to just
Would
keep
you like
clicking?
me to advance slides, or would you
Oh, I
like
can, yeah.
whatever is best
We
for
do the
you?
slideshow,
Oh,
Eric.
there you go, okay, thank you.
You want it on slideshow? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay,
Well, actually, you're right. That's a better way to do it.
well, it's an old program.
Should,
Click it twice, maybe?
yeah, there we
Okay,
go.
okay, thank you. Okay.
It takes there's a little bit of a lag. There we are.
There's a lag, okay. All right, so so you guys can see this is, this is the ecology of, I'm just gonna focus on Table Mountain because that's the one that I've been around for, 35, 40 years. So I don't know outside of my area, except I've walked on most of the ditches over time and watched how they've changed and then have made some observations based on my background as well. Okay, a little lag, yes, you're right, okay. So as you guys know, I'm not, know that I'm not saying anything new, I'm just gonna tell it in a story, okay. So after the gold mining, the infrastructure was here and it was gravity feed for all our agricultural uses. And at this time, of course, everybody grew everything, even the Ratto Ranch had ditch water fed through Peppermint Creek and down into the system. So originally there was, hundreds of miles of ditches throughout our community. And, people just continued to benefit from them, as did the ecology, but nobody really realized that yet. Okay, and this book, you guys, I believe, have a copy of this it's a 1909 Union Democrat book. And to the left, out of sight, to the right, is the old 1909 diagram of all the ditches and how they all linked up. And so that's in this this publication. If you want to buy one for yourself, they're about $20, and they're at the old museum there in the old jail.
In Columbia.
Yeah, right. So these were printed for the World's Fair. Okay, so of course our county puts out this publication that is absolutely showcasing the finest of Tuolumne County. So what's cool in this book is, Melvin Belli's orchard and the Lava apple orchard, and it just has a whole bunch of commerce in terms of tonnage. But what I like is that when the state wants us to come forward with how much water do we think we may use, so the rest will go out of our county, we actually have historic data of the capacity, of the agricultural capacity that we could return to. especially with supply lines so iffy. So some of you guys might recognize some of these places, anyway. Okay, so this is history, and I just want you guys to know that I am all about moving forward, learning from mistakes, getting excited about developing plans to return the landscape to a cultural landscape by the State Office of Historic Preservation definition is vegetation that is there as a result of something that man did. Okay, so the missions, the olive orchards, that is when you put the mission on the National Register of Historic Places, you cannot just put it as a little postage stamp, you have to take into consideration the orchards. The surrounding landscape is a cultural landscape that gives the built story its context. Okay, so what we're looking at here is a couple of pine trees, one on either side of the ditch, that have grown up in relationship to the ditch. That means they came in after the miners left and they didn't have to work for water. They didn't have to. Okay, it's very different than a pine tree upslope or downslope. Although now science is saying that trees can pass that water uphill and downhill through their connected root systems. So it's kind of a form of talking. And then in the background, you see a pine that's coming out of a humble. Okay, that's a huge pile of mine tailings. So as an archaeologist, if I looked at that, I can tell the size of the cavity, right? You've got a positive and your cavity is going to be your negative. That's all this is how deep, by looking at this pile, you can figure out how deep they went in, to the hill. And I also notice when you walk around the bend of the ditch, you see that the ditch cut through the tailings pile. And so then if you look upslope, you see a big adit, which is a big horizontal hole. Okay, it's not a tunnel, it's a horizontal hole that goes into Table Mountain because they knew the gold was under there. So the history here has a story once you unspool what was here first, and then of course after the miners left, the landscape then was able to grow next to the water. So then we have black oaks down in elevation where normally we may not have black oaks because the acorns were carried down, and same with the dogwood, et cetera. So you have a unique ecology with vegetation that is unique to this feature. Okay, so and these are really gaining in part of California's biodiversity 30 by 2030. They're recognizing these landscapes. Okay, so take a look at this because this is about a decade ago. Oh, there, sorry,
you go.
yeah, you bet, okay. Now this, okay,
Is it down or over? Oh, you got it.
Okay.
Space bar works too.
yeah, okay. So again, here's some of it, we have a leak going on, okay, but we also have seed communities that have taken their communities up to this system. Table Mountain Ditch or O'Neill Ditch, it's got two names, is above Mormon Creek. And so as Mormon Creek begins to get more impacted by wells and blackberries and homogeneous landscape, these seed communities go up here. So you get your several different species of ferns and asters and Chinese lanterns. I mean, the list goes on. Like there's a picture of some asters, and then you get that little arrow water adapted plant there that just likes to be in the water, and that is chorus frog habitat. At least I've seen little chorus frogs hang out in the center of that arrow for that plant. So you get a adapted ecology that's along the ditch. This was a particular area, I'm looking down from the mine tailings, okay, so I'm looking through that cut pile, and you don't see it here, but there is maidenhair fern here, which is not that common, and they grow in moist, mossy areas in kind of north facing environments, in rocky environments, and so there's a really nice colony of maidenhair here. And that's not the maidenhair fern, though, it's different, okay. So this is a really cool example of, and this is when the old maintenance crew, Dennis was here, and what we had was this pipe, this kind of unsightly and kind of, if you're looking at a cultural landscape with cultural features, man-made features, you've got a situation here where this is an overshoot, okay, so it takes the water and shunts it across the ditch. So in these kinds of areas where you've got runoff coming down in a storm event, it's really important to protect the integrity of the ditch feature. So sometimes that inner curve will be lined, again, to protect so it won't blow out. So the overshoot is another remedy for protecting this feature. Oh, there's some maidenhair. It's kind of where the rocks are, right above the rocks. It's really beautiful. It's kind of a house plant. Okay. So what Dennis and his crew did, and I don't have a picture of it, is they went and looked at the old historic plants with the old wooden overshoots, and they built one right there. So they removed the pipe and they put in a wooden overshoot. And so that this is what happens with cultural resources. If they have become degraded over time, there are ways to maintain their story and maintain their integrity. So here's here's what it looks like when you've got the cultural landscape feature, and then you transition into a lined, shotcreted area. And the ecology then begins to change. And the water actually speeds up, and the sediment then is free just to continue to move because it's not being trapped by side vegetation. Just a transition. And it's really cool because the crews, even I don't know if Ab Bolter started this, but dating the gunite. So we really have actually a good idea of when those jobs happened. And again, this was, PG&E just began to do the spot gunniting, sort of like an aggregate. You could barely notice it. It was very minimal. And then there was a direction early on, TUD was only less than, not even 10 years old. There was the direction under Tim McCulloch to, if you have two places that are leaking, even if they're a mile apart, it's an opportunity then to line. So you have that kind of era, and now we're transitioning into hopefully some nature-based solutions to management. I think this was the time when the gunite was just so, they added pigment to it just to see if there's a way it could blend. But I think at this time, when it was all fresh, nobody really understood how that affected the inability of the sediment to get sidelined and begin to just get trapped in the vegetation so that you can keep the water, I'll just say sparkling, and so when you've got sediment suspended in it, because the sediment can't fall out, then the water becomes more murky. Okay, that's that Mimulus is monkey flower. Okay, so they have that kind of lipstick red little flower, little happy flower, and that's you just don't really see that along the creeks as much anymore. Okay, so then this is an example of some really modest gunniting that in the PG&E era, you can see it's kind of an aggregate, and they just did, I don't know, they may have just gotten their wheelbarrows out there. I don't exactly know what they did, but they also had different policies where they allowed people to walk on the system as well. And that's still true up in Twain Harte, where Fish and Wildlife actually stock it so people can fish up there. Okay. because, okay, the lining, all right, here's what we're looking at. Along Table Mountain, because there is an underlying, there's kind of weathered slates, right, underneath the deposit, they're metamorphosed sediments. And then you've got Table Mountain, so you've got different contact zones of rock material, and the miners knew that. And it's rocky, let's just say it's rocky, and so where it's rocky, it leaks. So what the miners did is a tremendous amount of dry wall rock work, stacked rock, and that's what you're seeing on the downhill side of the berm. If you scraped away that moss, you're going to see a vertical rock wall. And it's an extraordinary example of craftsmanship, and it's part of the elements of workmanship and integrity that made this system eligible to the National Register, because you can still see its story, it can still tell its story. So behind the camera, you know, is a place where there was a collapsed adit, and it was creating a problem for the ditch. Okay, so the berm gets really, really narrow, and there's a vent on the downhill side that could blow out. Okay, this whole thing blew out before. So in those situations, if you were standing there going, okay, what should we use here to protect the integrity of the ditch from this potential collapse of this vent, then lining it in that area would be an appropriate management objective, because we don't want the system to hemorrhage. Instead, this whole thing then was lined, and today, if I didn't know where this was, this rock work, you cannot see it. So in fixing a problem, but stringing non-problems together between two problems, we created a whole different collapsed regime that also affected this rock wall. The rock wall is still there, but it's going to be, it's going to need to be, if we want to, you know, get a little pilot grant to be able to mitigate this area and expose the rock wall and protect that. But again, see if we can bring the integrity back.
Can I ask a clarifying question, I suppose? So what exactly am I seeing, are we seeing that as a result of the gunniting from whatever point A to point B has now caused this rock wall to be compromised? I'm not seeing something.
You're not seeing, no, because I don't have a picture of it.
Oh,
So
gotcha,
I don't
sorry.
have a before and after.
Okay.
I do have one before and after that I'll show after the
Okay.
PowerPoint, okay? And it is of that, the tailings pile of the attic, those two beautiful pine trees. And that's red-shouldered hawk habitat also, they love those pines. So if I showed you an after picture of this, it would be no oaks, they're all died. So after this gunite came in, it took 2 years for this to suddenly, instead of it being a shaded water conveyance system, it was shocked with sunlight. The oaks began to die off because it was sudden death, because their roots couldn't get the water. These are just lessons learned, okay? So what you would be looking at is, one, the path, there would be no oak leaves on the path. It would be all stickers. Okay, all the invasives now have come in because of the sunlight. The brush, the toyon, and the everything that could come in after a fire came in because you had no shaded. Actually, we had, before we gunnited it, actually a shaded fuel break. But at that time, we didn't realize the effects that gunite would have on this kind of landscape. So you would actually be seeing a huge amount of fire fuel loading, because all that green now would be brown, and it would be totally swallowed up with brush and poison oak. And oaks have to go somewhere when they die. And so what you have is the oaks that have toppled over with their root wad kicked up, and then the brush swallowing that evidence up. So that's what is going on out there. And so it's very difficult now because of the trees that are fallen and jackstraw through this area, plus poison oak and brush and blackberry, you can't see this feature. So what I see here is we have opportunity for resource protection, mitigation, and enhancement. This is behind my house, and what this actually is the old the old Slumgullion Mark Twain route. That's the original Highway 49. And what's really cool is, I love it when the TUD crews come up here, because they can park and they keep the integrity of this road intact because their vehicles keep using it as was intended. But this is, could be potential trail usage or whatever. So this is just the access to the area. Okay, so this is a photo of a leak. And this was a leak that was along that road. And it was starting to affect the integrity of that road. So the more the water was pouring out of a gopher hole, which is on the right, was just pouring out. So these are really difficult to detect, but because you could still see this area, it hadn't been grown over because it was unlined, you could figure out where the leak was. But what was going on is it was actually creating an unwanted wetlands. The property owner did not want this. So we had a couple of problems here. So we had really, in this case, unwanted habitat conversion. This was creating a wetlands that, what we don't want is to have an established wetlands, turn into the salt sea, and then we're stuck, putting water in it, to keep it viable. So what we wanted to do was actually stop this, let everything die, and return it to a meadow ecology. What also was going on is, with this amount of water leaking every day, it was shocking the trees down, there was valley oak, and they died. And it's like sudden water shock death. And so they have a different look to them than trees that have had their water source cut off, and they never had to work for water, so they topple over because they don't have a developed root system. Every huge developed root system getting way too much water, and they die. And they die standing. So if we were looking at management objectives here, it would be, we want to get rid of that green, and we want to fix the leak, have that dry up, stop the blackberries from coming in, and keep it as an open meadow. That would be the management objective here. So I might be repetitive, but I think, the last conversation that we had in this room, and I think Kurt, you had mentioned it, is ditch by ditch, some have incredible fuels on them, and that would be the management objective. And then others, it would be wetlands objective. So, again, it's just what's appropriate. What do we want to keep here? We want a stabilized ecology. We want the water shaded. We don't want the brush to come in. Let's just stand around here on this ditch and say, okay, what's working for us here? How do we keep that? How do we give that a drink? How do we fix the bad leak? So we may allow some good leaks because because we want to keep the fire danger low, but we've got to fix the bad leaks. How do we do it in a way that the ditch can still tell its story? This now is a before picture. It is now, and this was under Jerry Whitehead, it is now half gunite. And so just that half gunite, it did stress the trees out, but because it was just half, the ecology did not collapse. The trees adjusted. So the property owner does not have a tremendous fuel load like further down where Studebaker George lives. Okay, so I think that's that's another rock wall that if, you know, let's say we did get a Sierra Nevada Conservancy cultural restoration grant, these rock walls would be really nice to clean up and, you know, keep the brush, the poison oak away from them, because they're all through this area. And believe it or not, there's nice vertical rock wall there. That is an area, so standing there again, we now have a whole bunch of cut debris. So it could have been PG&E because there's a power line here. So they are just gonna throw it in the nearest ravine. So the ravine on the right now is totally filled with dead brush, dead toyon, dead stumps. There was an oak that needed to be cut down, and that ravine is part of an area that has a bunch of archaeological, you know, I don't know if the Mormons were there, or the Chileans were there, or one of the murders that happened there, but there are stone structures right in this area, plus the road goes through. So, you know, again, it's looking at this going, do we really want to just throw the brush in the ravine where there's a rock wall and we're just kind of creating a big pile of fuel? And it's tough to pack it out. And to me, the best way is to stay on this system when it's little, pull the unwanted vegetation when they're tiny, so you don't have this big problem of fuel loading after a management tool was in there that turned out to be inappropriate. And also that means in the winter, I don't know what PG&E did, but you know, burn it. You know, Columbia College has a great, Hofstra is burned right there, you know, on the campus, as long as it's really appropriately done. I don't know about, you know, the fuel load here, you know, maybe if we partner, they'd have to take a look at it. But at any rate, it needed to have been packed out, but better yet, it shouldn't have really gotten that big in the first place. And I'll blame it on PG&E. Okay, so just, this is pretty much in the past, but this is something that was happening, and that was, you've got the trail, you can see it, it's on a curve, okay, right under the word maintain. The ravine is on the left and the ditch is on the right. So there was a leak, and the first thing, of course, that the crews do is put some boards along there, and you have to backfill the board with material. So what was going on here is that it was being chipped right out of the trail, and instead of maybe taking it from upslope or something. So this is pretty much gone away, but what happens once you start chipping it is the blackberries move in, and then when you start mucking the ditch, then you throw that material right on the blackberries, and then that establishes nicely the blackberries right along the ditch, which makes it more tricky to see the leaks. So if we can keep the blackberries, keep material from piling up on blackberry canes or runners, then that's, you know, just that awareness, then we won't establish a colony of blackberry, which makes the finding leaks even more difficult. And ideally, it'd be great to get the Delta crew or, you know, develop a volunteer program to take care of some of this. You know, I don't know about herbicides, I'm not an expert here, but I do know that PG&E was pretty much, their management style was walking it every day and nailing this stuff and having people walk the ditches to keep the integrity of the trail and to, you know, shimmy the soil down on the gopher holes. Okay, so as we're gonna be, you know, moving into managing this system and kind of looking at what really works and working with nature, there's no easy way around this. It's not fancy. Everybody it's like what a interdisciplinary team does in the Forest Service is you get the biologists and the ecologists and the aquatic biologists out there, and you discuss what habitat's there. I mean, we do know for a fact that there's western pond turtles, that kind of thing. What do we wanna do, you know? Is there a leak here? Is it, what's working here? Is there fuel here? How do we get a plan? And you just GPS that in so that the crews then stop and they pull that up and then they go, okay, here, we've got some species and here's how we're gonna, and if there's a leak, here's how we're gonna fix the leak. And this is just more, you can see that the actual trail, because of the chipping on one side, is just getting, the integrity of the trail is kind of getting messed up here. So it's just develop management strategies that meet the objectives, and I need to add not just one objective, but multiple objectives. And of course, that we know at the state, that's where all the money is, multiple objectives, and not just a single thing. So in this situation, maybe a little bit of gunite on that curve, just enough to protect the integrity of the wall, you know, might be an appropriate thing to do. And we just don't string it all together to have a collapsed ecosystem. So it's the appropriate use and where to use it. Okay, so this has been a few years after the gunite came in, and you can see that these trees are dead. They're just waiting to fall over in a good wind, but you can see something else has happened, okay? The ecology is now opened up, and we're transitioning into a toyon regime of even-aged brush. Now, this is what happens after a fire. You've got oak mortality, and then you've got the brush coming in. Now, we've got good examples of this, so that we know that we can ask ourselves, is this what our management objective is to increase the fuel load and create an even-aged landscape and collapse the ecosystem, the cultural landscape. So this is now to a point where I can't walk this. The stickers and the invasive species that have been allowed to come in along the trail have created a real goat head bummer experience for my dog. So in the old days, my cats, you know, I mean, everybody walked, because it was oak leaves and pine needles on the trail. And so you don't even have to look up to see what's growing. You can just walk and see what you've got. And it was a covered canopy, so it kept the water cooled down. So now, you know, again, now we know. What I'm seeing and here's the management objective. To the right is a cavity of a tree whose root wad fell over. And that's all post lining. That's a unintended consequence of lining. And these it takes about 2 years and there they go. So again, it's looking at what's working for us. These were green and healthy and alive, but they were very, very water dependent. You know, just adjusting our management strategy accordingly. So develop maintenance techniques that will retain cover, reduce evaporation, and decrease fire risks. And, you know, fix the leak, obviously. So this is the you know, the unintended consequence. These black oaks grew in after because they could, and now there's no water going to them. Again, it's just identifying management objectives, developing strategies to meet those objectives. Like here, you know, it'd be great. And the crew, okay, so that pipe is gone. Now we have an historic, appropriate overshoot, and the crews did a fabulous job removing these blackberries. Now we probably need some permanent solutions, but you know, this snapshot is much improved right now. It's really a good way, a good example, and I'm sorry I don't have it in the slides, to say, job well done. So I don't need to keep on going on this, but just how chipping affects the system over time. And it's also, the other thing is removing people from the cultural landscape. How does that affect the integrity of the trail over time? So for an example, today, when in the past, there were wagons, there were people, there were horses, all on these ditch systems. You could walk at one time from Twain Harte to Columbia College on the system. And people were used to people walking. I think when Twain Harte, when they began putting gates up there by the blue, it made it difficult. Well, unintended consequence of removing humans from the trail is that the trail doesn't get beaten down, doesn't stay beaten down. So that makes it harder for the crews to get in. And so reintroducing people on the landscape in a managed way, managed recreational way, may be beneficial to our crews because these trails are being used and the gophers just can't come in and then the leaps come in after the gophers. Okay, so I think I've kind of, okay, weakens and depresses, so we all get it, what's going on here when we taking soil wear from the trail. If you saw this today, there would be all stickers, there's no black oak leaves on the ground. It's fully lined and all those green oaks have fallen over. I think this snowberry, this is a half-lined, fully lined area, so the ecology here is very changed, but I think there's some snowberry here, which is a native. And I think with good management that snowberry, which the red-shafted flicker and there's another one, the cedar waxwings actually like too. And so we've got a native colony here and you just don't find it on the creeks anymore. And so just little things like that, plant identification going, okay, well, let's see what we can do here to get rid of the blackberries and keep the snowberry. But the snowberry likes a shaded environment and that shade is now gone. Okay. Yeah, this was a leak. I don't think folks really knew how to fix it. And so as a result, it's just kind of the wrong direction to go. And you can't see the rock wall anymore. But the leak was really allowed to go for a long time. Okay, oh yeah, all right, so this is really hard to see, you guys. You can see the burlap. Those that work on the ditch know, they recognize there's the burlap sacks on the left, on the side of the ditch. And then on the right side, this was a big oak tree that fell, and it's really hard to see. But once, so it fell, but it caused a big hemorrhage. So when we have situations like that, we may look at that and go, you know what, we want this oak to hang in there. We may need to line it before it falls over. So in this situation, the oak pulled out and then caused a pretty good sized hemorrhage. There it is. And then this is what precipitated the big leak down below on the historical road. There's just water pouring out. It's an everyday thing with you guys. It's just kind of no longer one size fits all if we want to not make a whole lot of work afterwards. It's just a little bit difficult, but there's a line up above in the upper part of the picture. That's actually the road prism, and this is the water pouring over. And this is fixed. This has been fixed. There it is. And this parallels the ditch system right below it, but it's almost unrecognizable now. Because it took a while for some of these leaks to get fixed, we have a lot of blackberry encroachment then that makes leak detection even more difficult. This was a situation where there was rock outcropping, no leak, and it got blown up and created a leak, and now it just created more problems. So just thinking it through, you know, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And again, working with nature, you know, is this rock a problem, or can it still stay in the ditch? Is the ditch able to navigate around it? Because we have areas where the rock has to go around, where the water goes around it. So it's really, again, rethinking the unintended consequences of a heavy-handed action. And this is the leak that got started because the rocks got dynamited up above. This is Dan Fox's driveway. And this is fixed now. So I'll just close by my favorite quote, which is, and I'll just read it. In the end, our society will be defined not by what we have created, but by what we refuse to destroy. So is it possible to get out and into this for a minute? Okay, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So Eric, I got a question for you.
Mhm.
Your new equipment, yeah, I don't know whether you got it yet or it's coming or what.
No, not yet.
You know, the quads or
Where's the
whatever.
file? Oh, is it GZ?
How in the world are you gonna be able to navigate a lot of those berms because they're so narrow?
No, it's okay.
So there's a lot of places we're not gonna be able to take them down the ditch.
If you go on
It's
that,
gonna give us
Okay,
access
two big
from
lines there, just click on that.
this point to the ditch, so the guys aren't packing the material
Yeah.
this distance, especially during storms, snowstorms, and things like that, so it's
Oh,
gonna cut
sideways,
that
of course,
timeline
yeah.
way
you know,
down.
when you go back in.
And the labor part of it, of getting up and down.
Well, I was looking at, you know, that Table Mountain ditch and that's a walk ditch. It's a long distance. I don't know how you guys can handle the problems out there without having the berm wider.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we wish that all the berms were wider on every ditch we have, because there's quite a few spots that are narrower than what you see in the Table Mountain, the different features they
I
have.
don't want to overstep. How can you make them wider, or can you?
Oh, there you go. Oh, it's touchscreen.
I don't know,
Oh,
I don't think we can.
good, okay.
I think in areas we can, there's other areas we can.
I
There we
forgot
go.
it's touchscreen. Just the nature of the steepness of the slope.
Yeah, getting the material there, do we cover something up that's cultural, do we change? Yeah.
So remember one of the first slides where there's the mining tailing in the background? Okay, so this has been now 10 years. This is what happens, that beautiful pine on the right is gone. The one on the left is gonna make it. The oaks in there now are all falling over, and so you can see that the landscape has transitioned. But now we know, okay? And I mean, it's now we understand the oaks can return. When you go down to the first area where this happened, where you had a Toyon regime replacing the black oak down by Studebaker George's, those black oaks are coming back. So the management plan there would be to remove the Manzanita and the Toyon. You might have to hit the stump with some kind of treatment, okay? And then we have then achieved our objective of cooling the water because we've created a canopy. I do this with all native crews within ARC sites. The oak tree, they are coming back, but they're throwing out a lot of suckers. And so we will cut all those suckers to get that energy up from the root wad up to shade the area as quickly as possible and cut those suckers. And you can tell in areas with their 150-year-old trees that there's no there's no mother trunk, right? It's all these old trunks, about 5 or 6 of them in a fairy ring. You know, you can go, I wonder if a fire happened there, you know, and obviously the old cavity mother, which I call the center oak, which is great for cavity nesters, which we do definitely have here, has died, but the root wad and all that starch is living, so it just puts out suckers, you know. Buckeyes are the same. But this is actually a totally transformed landscape now, because, and the cultural landscape will return, the trees will be more hardy, but we have a fire problem in the meantime. So if we go forward, knowing that we may create a fire problem and we wanna keep the oaks, and how do we fix the leaks and achieve the objectives? It could be a whole new management style of walking it every day, of volunteers walking it every day, you know, keeping that trail open. I don't know, but I know that we've gotta think really innovative, you know, the Columbia College crew, there's a collapsed ecosystem, that was the first one that got lined behind there, and it took about 2 years for those huge ponderosas to die. And that was a whole ropes course back there, but I know that they're working on that. But when you remove the water, 100% removed the water, you get what's behind Columbia College now. And that was warned against by Jim Maddox and some others, but, so as our mission adapts, then so do our management strategies. I won't show you this, but I have it here if you guys are interested, and it's the old text for the old 1876 ditch law right away. So after this meeting, I'll share it with you guys because you know, they could have some nuggets in there, you know, how it was historically protected and the right of way. And I know we're interested in that as well. So any rate, that is just my ditch maintenance planning PowerPoint. And I do think that we need to revamp our CEQA to, it doesn't include now the data, the cumulative effects. I think intuitively we've already moved on kind of in our management, but it would be nice at some point to revisit that CEQA. You know, now that there's been sightings of yellow-legged frog and red-legged frog within our system, and western pond turtles and tri-colored blackbirds, et cetera, we may want to revisit and re-strategize our connectivity plans using nature, which just is fancy words for saying, okay, where can we stick some ferns to trap the soil to clean the water? You know, the water's getting real murky, maybe not in every ditch, but certainly in this one. How do we get this water cleaner? And that could be management, and through nature, we clean it up. Could be, you know, even unlining sections and replanting them with vegetation that can trap that silt so it doesn't just go down the nearest gopher hole or the nearest weir, because that's another unintended consequence is it totally changes the people that need this water, their ability to draw this water. Okay, and I'm done, yes.
You know, I think the environmental stuff does need to be documented, you know, as she's saying, because that right there will give you ammunition against buckwheat when we get back into PG&E, because it's proof positive it's here in the system. That, you know, like a yellow-legged frog and pond turtles and all that other stuff. And if you have that documented, then suddenly all his arguments go right out the window, you know?
So I want to thank you guys for your time. It's pretty simple. It's just called fix the bad leaks, manage the good leaks in a way that for multiple benefits in the system.
I've got a couple of questions to ask for you, of you. If this gunite was at this level here, if it was, is that a middle ground for you on the ferns? if the ferns were at that level? Or is your biggest issue with the gunite, just the height or just the whole thing being gunite?
Well, I don't know, if you look at the profile of a ditch,
Mm-hmm.
okay, and if it's lined up to the top,
Yeah, so this is pretty high.
that is pretty high, okay? It seemed to me that the PG&E
The one you
had a
showed.
little dish,
Yep.
little bit of a dish, and that the water, the sediment load could still, filter out. That's the concern, is that, customers can no longer get clean water out of this. So we've got a couple of things going on, and I'm not, I'm all for experimenting on this. I do know that when PG&E had a strategy, walking it with a two-guy team, walking it every day, and just doing a little bit of very shallow, fixing, didn't seem to affect the cultural landscape. When you start, and the water the water quality was really good still. There was still a lot of filtration, so it could just be finding the balance here. But to answer your question, if you have gunite, so that the silt can't just filter out, so that you wanna go for water quality also.
Well, from hearing you, I'm just trying to think out loud, because I'm trying to find a middle ground. Every once in a while, if you came out and you took a section out and we gunite it down to that, and then we planted ferns, is that a good idea for you or a horrible idea? Because I don't know if I can say I want a gunite section, I don't know if I can just dig a deep section and plant a fern, it's just gonna wash out. But if I kicked it off to the right or left, I don't know if I can have areas.
Well, so let me ask you, if you come across a leak, what's your management objective there? To fix the leak, right?
Depends, yeah, just depends on, we have different leaks, just like we have
We do.
different areas. I'm gonna show you 3 today, they're 3 distinct differently issues. So fixing them, it's different, it's like I'd have to, in every situation has to come with the unique.
I think it's like thinking it through so that it may be easier at the very beginning to go, look, let's just do a mile of gunite. That's the easiest thing we can do. We don't have to come back. We don't want to have this little half thing because it'll undercut, I know all the reasons. But what we have is then we end up 10 years later being in the logging business. So how do we find a balance to where we can achieve the objective of fix the leak, and not upset the ecology there? And I can show you a whole PowerPoint on the Ohio Chesapeake Canal and the Erie Canal, where they actually take it back so that the lining is hidden under the trail. All right, so they trench, I don't know how they do it, maybe put hardy backer in there, I'm just making it up, so the lining doesn't even look like this. So that you're actually achieving your objective of it's a little more labor intensive, but there's money that supports this direction for multiple benefits. You walk off the job, the ferns are happy, there's hidden is a liner, it could be plastic, it could have, a couple holes in it or something, just to let other things have a drink. So we can think how to hide it even, what that would look like, as opposed to,
middle ground.
Yeah.
There's a middle ground somewhere.
So in the past, we've definitely worked towards that. Now, how, when you're shooting, you get overspray up, and now we try and make our line your high water mark.
Yep.
For summertime, right? And just how it sprays, you end up, and depending how far, you can end up a little bit above it, but it's really, really thin and usually goes away quicker now than it did in the past. So we don't see that height anymore like we do. So it's promoting more growth above that. You're not gonna get the same growth that was there possibly before. Like the ferns really like being down in the water.
Yeah.
So they're still up and away, but so there's things that we've worked on to try and do to help that. And instead, and make it look a little bit better too. And I think it gives a chance for that dirt to slough over it a little bit more down there, so it's a little more covered down the road.
Yeah, what I see happening is the gopher holes, dirt starts going right in, they start above the gunite, and then it just, all this dirt then sloughs down into the water. And then it has no place to go. So I've watched on Table Mountain, the water quality, the color decline to where I now take my meter, you know, I bought a special pipe wrench, I gotta do this because I don't get any, I've got 15 PSI, so to me, the water clarity for my system, I can no longer run certain cannons that I used to run because of the clogging. So my maintenance has gone up as has other customers to deal with the cloudy water. I now have to create a siphon, and I don't wanna get into what I have to do, but a siphon that can pull it through. As well as going up, doing a whole hose lay up the hill and then back flushing off of my own pump. So gunniting on one hand may achieve your objective, but it does not achieve the customer's objective, which is to have clean water.
Yeah, that's what I'm just trying to figure out a way to, we could both be happy. That's what I'm trying to figure out, a way
Yes,
if we
that's
do it low
exactly
enough, and we could do, if we could plant firms, like the white out inspections. You know, those are just ideas we'll throw out there and try to, all we can do is try, if they work, great.
Well, yeah, and there's some really great candidates down by Studebaker, George. Let's, you know, write a grant to, you know, Sierra Nevada. We got the first one from them, you know, that integrated thing where we look at some of that, you know, where those sideboards are and it's dripping down onto him. Let's maybe see about doing a pilot, but it would be good to get some support for you know, just some ecological, an interdisciplinary approach to the leak where you get your objective met and the ditch customer gets good water out of it, Studebaker George is happy, and the ecology is happy. I think we can get there.
Yeah, his is a little unique, his is hard to work on, I've worked on that one twice now. What happens is we fix it, and it just leaks the next 5 feet down, fix it again.
Yeah.
Keep chasing it.
Yeah,
It's just because of the material there.
Yeah.
All show
Yeah.
off.
I'm really, yeah. This is a really, a tricky, challenging, exciting, I think, historic landscape to manage. And the other ones, like Eureka, it's really clear that's a little bit higher up. There's some really good fern grottos, and I've got lots of historic photos. We can look over, and they're all tied to areas they're all mapped on their photo points. And you know, we can take a look at the management objectives. This one is a real tricky one, but you know, maybe the Eureka, not so much. Those ferns and those pines, they're pretty hardy up there in those areas. And granted, there's gonna be mortality, just because, you know, and so we get it, things die, it has nothing to do with gunite. It's not a static landscape. Yeah, we just don't have to add to it. Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you guys. Do you have some other ones you wanna share, or you?
I have 3 proposals to show you with 3 distinct
Should we move on, is that our
Yeah,
next?
that's for you.
Okay.
Then we can move on to the next one if you want to.
Barbara, do we have any type of recommendation for this item, or is it just informational?
It's just information, kind of prime the pump.
Quick question. You mentioned the building sightings. What sightings?
There's been some reporting, so it's just preliminary information has come in a couple of areas.
Recently?
Uh-huh,
Okay.
Yeah.
On the pitches or?
Yeah. What, I can't conjure up the map,
Oh, the one from EN2?
yeah,
So it's it would be Woods Creek. That it's flowing, you know, obviously we crossed it a few times down there, but it's been on Woods Creek.
so it's not just potential habitat, like that affects the ramping rates in the South Fork.
Next item?
Okay. Next item is a discussion regarding upcoming ditch maintenance and projects.
Okay, I'll hand out these 3 proposals. Here's one of them.
We're gonna stack.
No, that's a separate stack.
I don't need one.
There you
don't
go.
have enough.
I should have enough.
This looks like the college. No Shaw's Flat.
3 separates.
Oh, I see.
Is there another Shaw spot?
These are Shaw's Flat.
Those are
different ones?
There you go. You have 2 Shaw's Flat.
And one's San Diego. Did you get this one?
No. These are all Shaw's Flat.
The large one's the Shaw's Flat. It's the. Don, you have a large one? With a bunch of paper in it.
Is that that one?
They're not the same.
No.
That one Stag Ranch. Probably you have this one, right?
And then.
Yes,
Ron, you have this one?
Shaw's Flat, yeah.
You have the San
There's
Diego.
two, there's,
Oh, there's 2 of them?
Here's one,
Oh,
He
no,
has both the,
that one.
you have it.
yeah, got it.
San Diego, Ron? You have a San Diego?
No. Thank you.
Alright, let's try this, let's go for the Shaw's Flat proposal, the largest one first. It's the largest issue we have. So it's this one that says Shaw's Flat proposal, one with the most paper. Everybody got it?
Yep.
Okay, so we have a leak on the Shaw's Flat about 1,000 feet down from the storm treatment plant. The issue it's causing is this down in Litters Addition, there's some apartments down there that we found water about 3 months ago. And it's about 130 gallons a minute going down into the apartments. And it's going across the road and it's flooding areas of that road that
Where are the apartments at?
off of Leonard's.
right off in Litters Addition.
I've gotten calls for, I was
Oh, yeah.
about to say, really, okay.
So when we went down there, we realized this leak has been going for quite a while. There's a hill above there, it's saturated, it's pretty much made a swamp above the apartments. So we went through, and this is a huge area, we tried to find where the leak was. The leak pops out about 500 feet below the ditch. So it's not like you can just walk the ditch and see the leak, it's way down there. No, you actually mapped it, was it? It was about 500 feet. So the hard part about this leak is there's an area that all drains into one area where this water pops out. So we went up to in there and we put sections of pipe. If you look at the second picture of the proposal.
So, hold on.
Sorry.
Here.
Eric's better at this than I am.
Yeah, so obviously the leak started getting called in, there's issues, there's water running across asphalt and it ends up in the lawn areas of the apartment building, so. They started in certain areas working down the ditch, they were stuffing gunny sacks. They were digging up spots, they were poking the berm with the shovel handles to find soft spots, which unfortunately on this, both sides of the ditch, you can sink a shovel handle, it just goes, it just disappears. So they did that. You know, they tried to narrow down these areas, multiple spots they added sidelines to it to see if this is where we thought it was, because it looked like it looked susceptible to the leak, you know, the direction of where the water's coming out and how the topography is. They did that, no success. So then talking through it more, we were getting pipes delivered anyways for emergency supply for wintertime or in case we have a failure of the ditch somewhere. So we said, let's start throwing some pipe in there to try and narrow down these sections. There's how many feet of pipe in right now?
120 feet of pipe.
120 feet of pipe where we were hoping we would find it. Well, the pipe's been in for a month now. The leak hasn't slowed down. And of course, with the supply problems, we didn't get all of the pipe we ordered until last week, which we had planned on, okay, let's go add another 80 feet of pipe. to try and narrow down the sleep. We're running out of time. And again, it's just the guys they're working hard on it, but we can't narrow down the sleep where it's coming out.
Can we back up one second?
Yes.
So, all right, just so I get it in my head where these apartments are, and where all this is. Okay, obviously there's Bald Mountain, and I know that there's been some gates that have been put up along there so that you can't really walk that section anymore. Is that correct?
So that gate's been there for as long as I've been here.
Yeah.
They're at Brennan's.
Okay, is it the time, with all the times? That gate, okay.
That's the only gate that I know of on this section.
Okay, so you have to go through that gate.
Yeah.
That's how you get here.
The leak is before that, quite a ways before that.
Okay, so what are the apartments? Are they on,
So down where
Campus
that, like
here?
that 25 is, Barbara? That blue 25, it's down below that is where the apartments are.
got you,
We can do Google Earth, it's a value, but it's hard to see buildings within Google Earth because of the tree canopy.
so what's the nearest road?
Leonard, it is.
Leonard.
On the bottom would be Leonard's Addition, yeah,
And you've got one domestic in there,
yes.
wow. Okay, so the objective obviously is to to find the leak.
Yes.
But if you can't find the leak, what I'm hearing you guys say,
Is we need to do a large section of shotcrete.
yeah,
So what we wanted to propose to this too is we want to get some more pipe in to see if we can narrow the area down. So we're kind of looking for the okay for the 700 feet, but we have time to keep trying to narrow down this leak. So this shotcrete could definitely shrink. Regardless of the length of this shotcrete, what it does, what we would like to do is a pilot or a test case where we're gonna put a couple services in where we do the shotcrete. And then we're gonna irrigate when we feel like we need to. Basically run some poly or some irrigation tubing. You know, obviously the services won't be right next to each other, but they'll be a ways apart and try and kind of irrigate at a controlled rate just to see what happens to the environment. I feel like this leak's coming out so low, we may not impact that, but nobody can say for certain. So we're gonna try this and see what happens.
okay. I can't really tell here, but it looks like based on the leaves, you've got mostly live oak, all right? You got a pretty good mature one, there could be one leaf of a black oak here, I'm not sure, okay? So what you're saying is, we do not want to increase the fire risk here. With this amount of lining, we could have a big urban WUI fuel problem. The other thing you could have as well is after they die off is with huge atmospheric rivers, you could, your live oaks are your best defense to break the fall of rain. And this system may suddenly have to turn into, stormwater runoff in the nearest, creek just to preserve everything. I mean, you guys do that anyway, I'm not saying anything new, but let me just ask you another question. So the areas that you guys have piped so far, temporary pipe, is not where the leak is.
We don't believe it is.
Okay, so you may not have to line that.
Right, and that's what we're trying to shoot for, is just to see if we're trying to narrow it down, but again, the supply chain right now is hindering us. Because when Kurt ordered the pipe, we thought we were gonna be able to get 120 feet in, we were gonna let it sit for a week. We were gonna add 80 feet, let it sit for a week and kind of go. Well, the pipe showed up last week, the rest of the order did. So we're struggling there. So like I say, if we can narrow it down, obviously, then we could do a small section of shotcrete, but
A lot of this is half lined already.
yes.
A lot of this is just lined on the downhill slope.
Is it, okay, half,
Yeah.
okay. Half, I know that doesn't maybe take care of the up because you don't really know, but there's also And I'd have to look at what else is growing along there that could be your buddy, you know, for stopping it. It looks like this is pretty well traveled. Somebody's been traveling this pretty darn good. So
Well,
We have,
for you guys.
they've spent the past 3 months. now.
Good. We didn't need a grant to do
Working on
that.
it. And this, I mean, we definitely do that. There's not, as far as this ditch goes, there's not a ton of growth in the ditch itself. It's a spot we kind of spot weed eat when we're cleaning. Oh, there's a weed. Okay, walk up. Here's a weed. It just doesn't grow a whole lot of stuff. And there's areas that look very nice as far as the tree canopy, and there's not a whole lot of growth underneath. And then you come into sections where it's a big, huge brush patch.
Yeah,
It's, it's been that way for a very, very long time. So I think to definitely keep the trees watered in those open areas to keep the canopy, there's what our objective would be.
yeah. And the other thing is you have some little travelers that have the western pond turtle that have been spotted, right behind the treatment plant. And, then they're gonna wanna, keep on going. So, you've got some connectivity concerns as well, that they need their little hidey holes and
Yeah.
stuff along the system too, even though you don't have a whole lot of riparian vegetation, I'll just call it that. So if you can narrow it down, then pinpoint it, then that would reduce the expense.
Right.
Looking at Kalicia's service orders, and I think you said there are customers whose yards are flooded,
Yes.
water going across asphalt.
Yeah.
Well, and
And
that,
that's,
and this Eric can attest, this has been a pretty bad area.
yeah,
From
Yeah,
the treatment plant to where this is,
For
has
a long
been,
time.
for long, we've
So
struggled in
this
this.
isn't like a new
No, no, no.
flooding issue.
right,
No, we've done larger Shot Creek areas in the past here because of this same issue.
mhm,
And again, the leak keeps just going down.
So if
Yeah.
you bought the property recently, you should have seen this, or the inspector should have pointed it out. Because some of these look like new customers calling into customer
Yeah.
service.
Yeah.
and I just asked her for the last 2 years of the service orders in that area. They're all in the back of that page.
That's like I said, we're definitely working on narrowing this down,
mhm.
but
The other problem we're running into is I kind of have to start ordering the concrete, so I'll have it for ditch outage, because it's so backed up.
concrete's a month out.
Wow.
Well, what, as a ditch customer, even though we have people that are complaining downhill, because of the leak, the water quality of paying customers is something that, upstream in the Shaw's Flat goes into Slum Dam converts to mine. And of course, we have those people that the random goes through on 49, so I know I'm picking up a lot of debris there, but the cumulative effects of this action to downstream is real. I understand we have a problem with the water leaking, I really get that, and that's damage and that could cost TUD money too. But just looking at all the consequences before we figure this out and trying to minimize, I think, the work so that it doesn't have long-term unintended consequences downstream is I think I'm in favor of.
I can't disagree with you at all, Barbara, but that 130 gallon a minute leak, that is a sense of urgency. That's a lot of water. That's a lot of water, and it was over months and months, and I don't know if it was 100 gallons a minute a year ago and 80 gallons a minute 2 years ago and 50 gallons a minute 4 years ago. There's a sense of urgency with this water, this lost water, considering the drought, those sorts of things.
So it's going right in this guy's house.
Yeah, okay,
So I would like to
so,
think there's something we could do that's gonna address this leak this fall and also mitigate some of the other impacts, unintended impacts. So I'm hopeful that today we can come up with a reasonable, if not today, soon, a reasonable
That's all they.
approach
Yeah.
to fix that big leak. That's a hemorrhage, in my opinion.
It's getting worse.
And mitigate some of those unintended consequences.
What
I don't know what the answers, I really don't know what the answers are, but
So what your plan right now is to try to spend a little more time tracking it down?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so nobody's telling you not to do that, right? You're doing
Oh,
it.
no, we're doing it. We
Yeah.
have to. I mean, that's a lot of water and I'm worried something else is gonna happen.
How do you get
Yeah.
past the folks that are getting that water? How do you, smooth their fur back?
Well,
You know,
You don't.
Not happy.
I'd say I'm going to you to
Order the
come fix it.
concrete.
yeah, they've been, we're working on it. We're trying to find out. We're struggling finding a sleep. You know, it's like, okay, but, you know, and I'm worried winter time comes and it hasn't been found and now it's a big ice rink.
So do you guys walk that, I mean, I know that management strategies change and crews change and all that, and I know that PG&E, because when I talked to Peralt, the old PG&E guys and Ab, they said that they walk these things every day. And I'm wondering if that could be folded into a long-term strategy to nail these things in a proactive, preemptive way and change, not just a once a year, you know, just go out there and identify them and blast them. I'm not being facetious, I'm being, you know, just paraphrasing. Not letting these things go, but even if we had to tell the community, look, here's the alternative, is you get this leak because we can't cover all these areas every single day. We just don't have the manpower.
Well, this one you want to see from the ditch. This one you can't see. I mean, it's 500 feet down the hill.
Yeah, it's true, but what I was told by the PG&E guys is when you're walking it every day, you're on those gopher holes early on. I'm not saying that could have prevented this. I'm not even gonna go there. But it's just a different strategy in combination with where we are now.
Barbara, I kind of have a clarifying question though. When you say they walk the ditch every day, do you mean to say they walk all 72 miles of the ditch every day? Multiple crews walking 72 miles of the ditch every
Pretty
day?
much, they had different crews on each ditch, and they even had
So,
ditch tender houses.
So John Peralt's still around, right? We can consult with John Peralt. I'd like to know to what extent what Barbara's saying is true. I'd like to know that firsthand, not secondhand. Because what would our staffing have to be for that to happen?
No, it'd be volunteers.
Okay, I mean, I'll go with you with volunteers, but you know the labor market, it's tough to find people that come paid to go to work, let alone
Okay.
volunteer.
Why don't we just say this, is PG&E's had a hands-on walking it, if it's every day or once a week, they really, really walked it all the time.
What do we do? I'm under the impression we walk it.
We try and do every 2 weeks, get everything walked every 2 weeks. Summertime's a little more different with tax and being short-staffed. I mean, Kurt's still down a body, a full-time employee,
How many are on the ditch, crew?
including Kurt's seven.
And you gotta remember, Studebakers, Whites, this. I mean, I've been trying to fix these.
That's a
And
huge
that's where
territory to
That's
cover.
where my,
It is, and it's, yeah, so like you say, 200 hours, and this is old. 200 hours spent working on this leak. They probably have 150 hours working on leaks on Studebakers and Whites. Some leaks on the San Diego, some leaks on the Stag Ranch, and we get our little small leaks that we just don't talk about. We're gonna go gunny sacks, and then we'll go back in 6 weeks and put some more gunny sacks that aren't detrimental to the system right now, that we don't feel like is gonna be a huge issue. They're manageable leaks. Tags. That the ditch guys have, you know, there's 600 customers, they generate a lot of tags. And then their daily routines, getting all the reeds, cleaning grizzlies, drive time. It's not easy, they do what they can do. You know, there's a lot of, in the wintertime when storms are here, there's a lot of stuff that's like, hey, you're not getting reeds, you gotta clean grizzlies and walk ditch and go cut trees out and make sure the water stays flowing, so.
Well, maybe I get that you're doing the best you can with what you got, that's just, but everybody's in that boat too. But let's save that conversation, let's talk about volunteers. Because the question now becomes, if you don't let volunteers on your property, okay, what's my alternative is to have, you know, lanyard there was a group that was very interested in doing this, having lanyards, having the permission, wearing the vests, walking, fishing stuff out, tamping stuff down, and being a presence in areas where people have not been used to that at all. Do I want people walking on my property like that? No. Does it mean the alternative to lose that water? Then, oh, hey, do you want some cookies? Come on, it's just a different ball game now. And so maybe we can have that discussion at a time to have trained eyes and ears in a way that the public then begins to get used to enforcing setbacks, enforcing the right of way, enforcing the water quality issues. Could be so that in combination with you guys tracking this down and then treating it. And like you're gonna be doing some mitigation, right? Which is to give, they call them tree guzzlers, right? Something like that.
Yeah, we definitely wanna try.
Yeah,
Try something different that we've never done before.
This one I'm worried about because it's saturated the hillside so bad above these apartments that we finally seen this leak. So you could be creating a mudslide on this one.
well, if that leak goes into rainy season and we get, again, an atmospheric river that's just pounding, then you've got that slope liquefaction, and then you got real problems.
This one's pretty bad.
I really, yeah.
And again, worst case scenario would be 700 feet. I have a few ideas in my head to possibly mitigate some of the debris that's in the water, that we can maybe trap it, even though it's still shotcrete. Doing some different things that we've never done before, but won't cause problems to the ditch itself throughout the whole year. And Kurt and I can talk about that, to go from there, so.
Sounds good. So your plan here is to keep trying to narrow down,
Yes.
so you're gonna be removing maybe the pipe where
We're
it's
gonna
not a
go ahead and
problem.
leave it just in case, we're gonna keep adding to the pipe.
Oh, okay, you're not
Just-
gonna leapfrog it.
Just in case, yeah, it's a lot to get in there. Okay, now we have to tear down the head wall, move 100 feet, and just, so it's easier to just kind of add to it and go forward.
Okay, so you're working your way upstream.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So and then once you get it located,
But unless, we're gonna do the best we can, but we're running short on time.
okay, so what's your plan if you're running short on time?
That'll be, so say we get another couple hundred feet of pipe and then the leak doesn't slow down. I would suggest that we go from existing shotcrete to where the pipe is. Then we think we'll cover it. And then because of where the pipe is and if the leak hasn't slowed down, we don't need to do the shotcrete there.
That sounds good. And then the property owners are,
They will, that's where we're coming, getting you all of this, so we can not notify property owners. Go ahead and get somebody out there to do the cultural and biological before this gets done, a week or two before, in case we have to do anything else as far as fencing, or if they see some features they'd like left as we're going through.
yeah, so, the property owner can say no.
Yep.
They have a legal right to say, I want you to fix this leak, I get it, my downstream neighbors have a big problem. Can you do something other than shotcrete, I'm afraid of fire? Let's say you try to mitigate all that, they're not gonna be convinced. What would you do then?
Well, to get through this year to figure it out, we probably have to keep piping it. And just get the pipe in for now until we pinpointed exactly where the leak is. And then say, we need to shoot this piece here. And again, then if we don't do that, you have me there, I don't know what we would do if a property owner says no.
Well, if the property owner says no, and you go, what would it take to get you to say yes? Okay, and you explain everything and they go, okay, how about if you fix that leak in a way that doesn't destroy the look? Then would you guys then be interested in trying to dig, you're gonna have to dry it up, turn it off and then dig up that road prism and put a liner, they have those black, they piece together liners. And it's a shell, kind of reminds me of a cheap kid toboggan, but only with more sides on it. Would you be willing to look at some of the things like that to solve the problem?
I would be, is if it was a small section,
Yeah,
right? So again, we have a week that the ditch is off and we have to get these leaks fixed and the whole ditch cleaned before.
okay.
You know, so, you know, if we had to dig up 100 feet by hand and do this liner and then bury it, I would be hesitant.
That's tough. That's a big chunk. I understand. Yeah, and with this, there's other issues as well downstream.
Right.
So the mitigation plan is to only spend so much time, get as far as you can to pinpoint that. And even if you isolated 100 feet,
Mm-hmm.
you would still though like to shotcrete 700 feet. Is that what I'm seeing?
If we find a leak, I don't believe, we're not gonna need to do the 700 feet.
No, the hard part, Robert, is if we have two.
Or it's multiple smaller leaks that are coming
Which is
out.
most likely what it is.
That are all coming together.
Yeah. It could be.
If you see this little section right here on the pipe, that's PG&E had a blowout right there.
Yeah, it's a concrete box.
I see, okay.
So this, I mean, there's mine shafts all through there, so we have, that's why it's so hard to find a leak.
Yeah.
It could just hit in a cavern going here, it could be 1,000 feet that way. It's such a large area
Yeah,
to where it comes down to. There's no indication anywhere on that bank, I mean, we went up and down that mountain, you know, 100 times trying to figure out where we could, but there's nothing. So somehow it's going this way, straight down and popping out.
what I like is that you guys are looking at fixing the problem and taking care of the mitigating any potential fire danger too. That just sounds really good.
And most of this is already shot.
Yeah,
Yeah, like it's all,
Half gun, I mean, it's,
Yeah.
it's not, this is more much an overlay on most of this gunning.
so, okay, so you guys are focusing on where it hasn't been shot.
Well, no, it's all on the uphill bank side is where you can shovel handles through.
Okay,
So you see what I'm saying, if I'm in the ditch and I'm shoveling a shovel that way for 600 feet,
I see.
you know, what I mean, there's, I can't sit there and, you know.
Yeah, so you may have to
and
do some
sideline that whole thing.
lining on that other half.
Yeah.
On the uphill side.
The hard part is getting that done with it off, then you lose water, O'Neill drops. And now I can't, it took me 3 weeks to fill the O'Neill last time I had this off for a day. So these are the issues that are all on this ditch. This one's right.
yeah, this
Okay.
this one's
Well,
good.
thank you for informing us of your plan, and that's great. Hope you find it.
Yeah, it's a lot of water and the guys have been struggling the whole, I mean, with that, but then keeping the O'Neill.
Yeah,
It's a lot of water.
that is a lot of water.
Which one are you gonna go to now, Chris?
We can go to San Diego and then you wanna lead this one since you're on the all San Diego with the football?
Yeah,
Okay, San Diego.
San Diego, so it's a shorter section, it's 135 feet. We've done a ton of hand patching. Last summer, we, I think 7 days in a row, we went and shut the ditch off for 4 hours and hand patched and stuck gun sacks and did sidelines to find this leak. Never found it completely. Everything that we did, we slowed it down. It kept leaking. Then we got a phone call on the weekend and a sinkhole opened up in the driveway, which has, I think there's 4 to 5 homes back there to it. Crews came out, fixed the sinkhole. It hasn't come back, but that's the risk here on this one. Since then, an oak tree fell over this
Yeah,
winter.
yeah, on
And-
Bikini Corner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, and it took some stuff out there. So we had to get that cleaned up, so this is another one we would like to get in there and do 135 feet of shotcrete. So we don't lose the bank, cause the road is about 10 feet below the berm,
mm-hmm,
and it's almost a vertical cut, and the berm's only about 3 feet wide. So
Yeah,
I do, with
yeah.
how it leaks, I'm worried about losing the whole ditch right in there,
Mhm.
I'm seeing road issues, so. We would like to get in there and do some shotcrete here to sturdy everything up.
Okay, again, to me, the issue would be you've got these ditch domestics, and I know, a few of them in there, they're fiercely, proud of their, clean water.
Yeah.
And they don't intend to give those up, and so, again, it's gonna be, maybe this is not a large enough stretch to affect water quality and affect their systems. I know, there's further on down, Brian Kermeen, has had, he had to put in some other, tanks just to deal with the sediment load. So,
Yeah.
for paying customers, even though you guys solve the problem, then you just pushing the problem down. So maybe this isn't a big enough stretch. It definitely, if I'm looking at this, okay. Isn't there a split here? There's a ditch split.
So this is below the San Diego Divide by, geez, 1,000 feet, give or take, where it splits to go over to the Matlow or down to
Yeah.
San Diego, yes.
Okay. Oh, I see it. It's here. Okay, so there's experimental mine. I'm just trying to get my bearings on this. Because their water quality is still quite good.
It's very good up here.
Yeah.
Seems like the water quality here starts getting bad after it goes down through the Remington box, the rainy box.
Yeah, okay. So one of the Firewater identified access points is, I don't know if it's right along here.
It's right along experimental mine.
Okay. So this, okay. And then what kind of, this is unlined, or is this a reapplication of shotcrete?
It's kind of an overlay. We've done a bunch of hand patching through the years through there, so it's.
Okay.
And again, this is one we can keep real low. The water, it doesn't run a lot of water there, so we can go to high water mark and be good.
Yeah, just barely enough to get the job done.
Exactly.
Yeah. And property owner?
We'll notify and communicate with them that owns that.
Okay.
Have you had communication with them before now?
We've talked to them before and they understand what's going on and haven't had any pushback
Okay.
from
Is
them
that-
at all.
Robert Baker?
I don't know. I know the guys below. I don't know this one right here. We've never talked,
Okay,
or we've talked but never introduced.
yeah. And I'm sure you do this, but the locals right there, they've got some great, ideas as well. And so I think that, meeting with them, you can't get better than, Mike Nelson down on Experimental Mine, for saying, okay, here's how you can save a little money,
Yeah.
some ratepayer money. So, I think in the past, we haven't really told we've been really, we gotta fix this leak and, sorry, property values, but I think it's a different time now and, inviting those guys in so that they don't say no, that they feel empowered to work with you, I think is a really good idea in cases like this. This is a high visual area
Yeah.
too. This ditch is really stunning along Experimental Mine Road. It's really beautiful. I mean, along the Columbia Road, if anybody hasn't been out there. Granted, there's been some yucky fuel reduction stuff, but it's really kind of a whole snapshot of how everybody used to live. Those little tiny cabins
Yeah.
around there and everybody's treatment plant, it's really cool. Okay. Oh, sounds like a good plan.
Okay.
The next one is the Stag Ranch Massage Flat, and this is a big, fairly small section with a wide turn. The issue that I'm having there is leaks, and the bank has been undermined so much that we're pretty nervous about the whole ditch collapsing on that turn.
Okay.
There's
that-
another that you can do shovel handles on the upside and downside of this bank,
Hang on. Woods
the
Creek.
Stag Ranch one. on the
Okay,
Shaw's
okay.
Flat.
There's Union Hill.
Yeah, there's Union Hill. Okay, so here's where the monastery people, is it that, those guys?
It's,
That'll be
Up
cool.
above that.
yeah,
Okay, it's up above. Okay, I've walked that up there.
yeah, so you get to this from Columbia Way. And it is, it's, I think the
Yes.
sign's there, it still says Stag Ranch on the entrance to.
Oh, yes, it
to
does.
the
Yeah,
driveway.
okay. Yeah, it's definitely the tank for anybody that needs some visual orientation. That tank you can see from 49 going north. And it goes behind the Union Hill Inn, and there's actually a really cool siphon. There's two back in there too across Woods Creek. It's just really cool. Okay. 150 feet. It now, okay, so is it so it's leaking,
It's leaking down to a lower pond.
okay,
And this is,
I don't think it's supposed to be there.
well,
Or, I mean,
naturally, it fills up in the wintertime.
Oh.
But 2 years ago, we filled the pond up with a leak. And it's a big pond. And then it's happened again this summer.
well, good fire flow, right? I mean,
It's, well, the bad thing is so over, the canopies that is big enough there, the helicopter can't get to.
oh, okay,
Not even a long line.
Alright.
They can't get through it, so.
but yeah, you better believe the froggies will migrate there if everything's on fire, they will find it, which is kind of cool to set up a little way station for them. Okay, but I hear you, and that's the irony of the Salton Sea, right? That was a man-made leak, and now they're stuck.
this biggest issue is the undermining of the whole of that turn,
So so the leak is,
right at the end
right
of the
there,
undermining.
okay,
So it's, think of a cavern, it's making a cavern.
Yeah,
okay.
so the ditch,
So-
that comes down and then it goes in like this, and then you're at the ditch bottom. And then it goes on the other side too, kind of thing.
So you don't wanna lose, it looks like we've got, some live oak? And we might have a black oak there, wait, is there some lining right here?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
shot that, we got the okay to shoot above this for the first leak. Gosh, I went 3-4 years ago? I don't know if you remember.
Okay,
I don't know the site.
Yeah, but we brought this to you guys and went over this, and got the okay, and then this is another of the homeowner's okay with it, he understands.
Yeah.
The property, that's the actual picture.
so
But again, Barbara, what we would do, because of those trees there, we would do our dip.
That's that.
you would do your dip,
We would do the
okay,
dip around those to make sure, and it's,
Okay.
you know, we would work, if we have to work on those spots, we will down the road, but we make sure that those trees be tall to get some water.
So it's way
so and
down.
I'm seeing some ferns in there, as well, do you see those?
Yeah.
Okay, so those are your friends, you
Yeah,
know, okay, so would you just, shoot that gunite in that, crack?
Yeah, just to kind of, to guide the water.
Yeah, okay,
Right, it wouldn't, this one does not need to be very, I mean, the water's deeper there just because of how everything is, but it's
You've got-
gonna be about that tall.
okay, yeah, so you've got an undercut
Yeah.
that you're gonna,
Square off,
seal, yeah, okay, and then,
2 of them, on one each side.
okay. So it should, be very minimal impact on the vegetation,
Yes.
if anything, okay? That's my phone clicking, okay. All right, and property owner, they're, okay?
This one, yeah, the last time we were there, he understood completely, what was going on, had no problem with it.
And this isn't the Union Hill guy?
It's before, the person that lives here now bought the Stag Ranch property. And it was, I don't know if he's even a full-time, they were renovating when we were there last time, but said, okay, please don't turn my driveway up, we said, no problem, so.
Okay.
I'm amazed it did that, dug that out that deep. It must, the water must really cook down that ditch at times.
It can,
Pretty sharp turn.
And there's no rock work or anything
No.
to cover up, because that was a mistake. Okay. Yeah, it looks beautiful in there. I've been there once.
So that's it for that.
Okay,
Other than that, the ditch maintenance will be as normal, go clean ditch, hopefully get some brushing done to open some trails up at least. You're gonna rebuild spill 8
Still on
on
the,
the Eureka, which will be an in-kind, it's wood now, so it'll come back and be wooden again. It's worn out, it's rotten, it's time for it to be done. So
the true dimensional, like the thing that Dennis did for you by your
Yeah.
house.
yeah, rust on true dimensional. cedar.
well, at another time, I think it would be good to have a discussion about potential partnerships in our community, especially since the college does have water certificates or certain training programs. I know I've done some stuff for Tom Hofstra to talk about cultural resources and vegetation management, what, if you see an old tin can, take a look at it and to determine if it's historic or not. And, it's not like it's sacred, but it's just awareness training. But the college just seems really, enthused at looking at the multiple benefit interdisciplinary approach to managing these systems as well. So they could be a resource to help when we have that labor discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Any other questions?
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks.
Hold on.
Hold, please.
The committee recommendation is to bring this item to the board for approval.
Yeah. What do you think, Ron?
Yeah, are you talking about these plans here? Isn't that just normal staff in-house? I mean, why would the board be okaying this?
It seems like it's varied from general manager to general manager, and it's varied. The CEQA is clearly outdated. And I think that there's other issues that are now coming to being discovered along the system, so that there's other sensitivities, including species, to consider.
Okay, well, whatever you feel, I just kind of think that, my opinion is that this is normal in-house decision, and they're looking at the options, which is great, and but
How about treat this as a review, just a review
Yeah.
only?
yeah,
Absolutely, we can do just review and informational.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's easy.
Okay.
Yeah, well, yeah, you guys have a good plan.
I think we're gonna go forward,
Yeah,
yes, trying.
well, this shows, the thinking behind these three shows that you guys are trying hard, so that's good.
yeah, and the time is of the essence. I mean, I know we always default to, well, we gotta fix it, but it's like, well, wait a minute. You got water quality that we have to think about too. It's just not just thinking, one-sided now, so it's like, what does that mean to everybody, and the critters? So, yeah, you guys sound like you've really done your research and your homework, and
Yes.
I hope you find this leak.
I do too, it's killing me.
I really
Fine,
appreciate
no
it. I feel like I'm the layperson in the room, but when I first heard about it, I'm hearing about from Kalisha. We got customers calling, there's water in my yard, hear this, winter's coming. And then I hear Don and Kurt talking about 130 gallons per minute. I'm like, isn't this an emergency? What are you guys doing? Did we order the concrete? Are we gonna get out there? And I mean, I appreciate all your attentiveness to these issues that have long-term ramifications, Barbara, but like you said, this one in particular appears to be getting worse. It's so significant, and again, even if it's a stopgap, additional pipe for right now or whatever, because when I see Kurt's video, that river going through the guy's thing, and I hear from Kalisha. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. So.
Yeah,
Yeah, we're not continually learning,
that's it, and then we apply what we've learned, yeah. Alrighty, So review, this is a review item.
Okay.
So our next is increasing raw water customers, and setting a goal per year. This is coming up because this was a priority in a different era or different iteration, if you will, of our strategic planning. How do we get more on the ditch? It seems like using untreated water wherever possible will help save treated water for those that need it for their outdoor orchards and tomatoes. If we can take the stress off the system by putting some folks back on the system and using, again, the raw water, it just feels like we increase the customer base, and which got down, no fault of the old customers, it just happened. But it kind of skews the balance of splitting the check for the meal. And I just feel like over time, we just really haven't done this. We've talked about it. The board, I think, has made it clear that it's a direction, and yet it's never really been gotten off the ground. So I just wanted to have a serious discussion about what would that look like, what a plan would look like, what a setting a goal would look like. We see people so embracing this conservation thing that they're letting everything die. And then when you go down to Modesto, they're not letting everything die. And so who are we supporting here? And even though conservation is really good, and I joked about writing a check to Turlock Irrigation District for a couple of solar panels, but that would take care of our water conservation, so our people can not feel guilty about watering. And the other thing that people do not know is that 3,000 gallons a month, correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, is included in their bill. And I can't tell you how many questions I get from people. Oh, I try to not water, nothing goes down. I go, you are not using the water that you have actually paid for in your bill. Do I have that wrong, Steve?
No.
So each TUD customer for treated water is entitled in their bill to 3,000 acres. I mean, Scotty, yeah, right.
3,000 acres.
Yeah, okay.
Each
we're gonna
raw
see.
water customer is entitled to
3,000
acre feet. I've said
cubic feet
3,000 cubic feet a month?
Right.
Or it's a
Right.
month.
a month,
Oh,
400
6,000.
cubic feet for treated. I think you're thinking of gallons.
Yeah, so I think I would like to see not only some public education, but I honestly feel that increasing the raw water folks would along the ditch system would help save the treated water for those that don't have a choice. And you can see, you walk those ditches and there's PG&E rebar after rebar after rebar, of customers. And I just like us to set a goal and figure out a way that we can get folks back on. I know in the past, they were asked to get rid of their service when treated water came to town. So there was no opportunity to put a backflow device on it, it was all or nothing. And so people, of course, went to that and they gave up their ditch connection. And I feel that there's a little bit of restitution that may need to be there because people weren't really given the choice back then. So if it's feasible to turn them back on again, I think that would be a good thing. The other reason is that we go back into the PG&E negotiations, people really do need to walk this system and know where their water comes from and really pay attention to that. And I feel like removing these customers from the equation is actually doing TUD a disservice in terms of serving our community. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know how you feel about getting more ditch customers or setting a goal to get more ditch customers back on.
I'm for it. I think that one of the stumbling blocks is gonna be is the cost. And so we need to put together some sort of cost sheet so that everybody knows what it's going to be. And And there'd be a yearly cost besides the bill, and that's, if they're on treated water, then they're gonna have to put a backflow device and have it tested, so.
Then there's some people that don't wanna get back on the ditch, you know, they just allowed their garden to just go, but then there's others along the system, there's young farmers, thinking of the Dambacker farm, when that ditch used to go by their property, they may be interested in, now that is an abandoned ditch, so that's different, but,
They still have a hookup though.
they still have a
Yeah, they
hookup.
have a hookup on the pipeline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, we could start out with a questionnaire of folks that are in their billing, so that it's not a big deal.
Yeah,
see.
and, you know, I think there'd be a certain educational component to this too, because I remember I was doing a home inspection for this chiropractor and his wife on a home on a little dead end street off of Phoenix Lake Road. And they were on the ditch and but also had treated water. And they're, well, I think we're gonna get rid of the ditch connection. I said, don't you dare do that. I mean, that is valuable, you know. So they kept it, and of course, that's what they water their vegetable garden with now. So I think if people knew the value, then you'd be a lot more able to get success on that.
I'm gonna just stray for one, I know, kind of wanna make a point, is when researching that, putting the solar panels on the canals and the hundreds of thousands of gallons that was gonna save, I came across how the state uses the water and how other areas use the water. And there's obviously consumptive benefit, then there's agriculture, okay, and then there's environmental benefit or non-consumptive benefit. And the people that use ditch water feel very strongly about actually providing, because this water doesn't have to be treated to put on their ground, that it's also enables them to have environmental and non-consumptive benefit. And and because I am a ditch customer, I do water. I mean, I make use of that water. And I saw my first monarch that I have not seen a monarch in 5 years. And I had a lot of them. And it's got showy milkweed. And so by allowing people to use this water, they're actually hydrating and protecting their neighborhoods a little bit. And so we've just really allowed ourselves to try it, thinking that this water only has value as a commodity. And yet we are so far up the food chain that the water is still a force of nature that we have to deal with. That's what makes it so tricky. And I just feel that increasing the customers, it's not always just a dollars and cents kind of thing. There's the long-term consequences, like Nathan Rosasco, of reducing. Fire stops at his property, you know. Fire stopped at the San Andreas Mark Twain, at the Angels Camp. There was a house that caught on fire. It stopped at that park. It ignited a redwood stump that was really ancient, and then it couldn't go anywhere after that. And so we've seen the benefit to our community by it's not just about dollars and cents in my book. It's really helping all of us keep our using nature to reduce the risk. So I don't know what that would look like, setting a goal. Maybe we could set a goal of 50 a year, you know, just try to get the paying customers. We're gonna be adding paying customers and backing off their treated water. May not be a water savings, maybe that's a myth, but at least we would get people off of treated water for their outdoor use.
Yeah, so this is a puzzle for me. Does anybody, I've asked this question, I know you, I don't know. If you gave me an answer, I don't remember the answer, but let's just take it from PG&E historic, the last 70 years. What is this historic high number of ditch customers?
And that might be an impossible question to answer because some of us were raw and now we're treated, right? Or that many.
Yes. I don't think you could go back 70 years, but it's been a flat line for a very long time. Looking at old,
So
looking at the
around 600.
around 600, looking at the old PG&E books, from who they had on the ditch outlets. Yeah, it's, I mean,
So some of those outlets never had a hookup, right? Some property owner, there's an outlet for it,
Yeah.
but they didn't hook up.
Yeah.
It's not as if they were there, that's why the outlet marker's there. And then they,
well, there's always an outlet, so there's a ton of stations, well, they're not there, but there's thousands of station markers on the
PG&E
ditch.
marked them all,
Yeah, all the outlets that we had, PG&E had an outlet marker.
but they weren't
historically, these the last 50 years, around 600.
Around 600.
And then, so secondly, my second thought or just statement, or if it comes out as a question, fine, but we don't currently discourage people from hooking up as raw water customers, is that correct?
Yep.
We don't discourage.
One hurdle, if you're going to try and incentivize old ditch customers who disconnected and gave up their service in exchange for treated water, is you gotta kind of make things whole with the capacity, because they currently treated water is about $8,500 for the capacity, right? Well, that customer basically didn't have to pay that because they gave up their ditch connection. So if they want to come back to the ditch, rather than paying the ditch connection fee, well, they probably should pay a treated, end up back paying that treated water capacity. Because otherwise you're just giving it away. You know, they've got two connections for, you know.
Well, that makes sense.
You know.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so let me say it again. So if someone comes as a ditch domestic, they've got a choice whether they can keep their connection, but they, well, what we're doing now is that they just pay about $750 and they can keep their ditch connection. What they used to do though, was you either paid $8,500 and you got your treated water and you kept your ditch connection, or you didn't pay a connection fee at all, but you gave up your ditch in exchange. So you exchanged the $8,500 for the ditch.
That was probably only for a short period of time, right? I mean, how many services do you think took advantage of that?
We don't have ditch domestics.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I mean, I'm just trying to bracket how many, the universe of connections that took advantage of that.
Yeah, I would say my time it was 4 or 5.
Yes.
Railbed, when water came to Railbed, all those guys left. McCullough approached my mom, offered to drill her a well if she'd give it up. Because he knew he could abandon the system if he got the customer base down to 250 people. He could have legally abandoned it. So I know that there were people on the Railbed area. I mean, obviously at one time before PG&E, you know, when it was the county, everybody really was on, unless you had a well, so to speak, or, you know, before electricity, you know, it was gravity fed. And so you go back far enough, everybody was on it, you know, you saw the historic photos of the use of it. But I know Railbed for sure, all those ditch domestics got off of them. There were more on Columbia.
That was probably what, about 15 to 20 years ago?
I think a lot of those on Railbed kept their services.
Did they?
There may have been a couple that got off there, but there's,
Okay,
yeah, there's a lot of black backflows as you drive up Railbed where the meters are.
That's a good indication.
That's an indication they kept their services. And then, well, my history, understanding where the services went to too, from dealing with the customers, so.
well, what Antonio says makes sense, sorry, Steve.
No, that's all right, keep going.
You know, is to remedy the original proposal and have them actually pay for the treated water hookup. And that way, that connects them to the raw, if they want it. Now, maybe others, they've moved on. Don't know that was a possibility, but that seems like a fair way for the district to recover the fee.
So these are just observations for the group. My observations, my opinion in the 13 years I've been around here. Next to these guys, I deal with the ditch every single day. ditch customers, ditch service orders, all these things. Again, my research, we haven't kicked anybody off the ditch since TUD came along. We've stayed right around 600. One of the biggest things that I'm aware of, and again, these are just some of the challenges. I'm not really sure how I feel about a priority of increasing ditch customers, but that said, you know, early on, we had a program that was instituted by one particular board member to provide supplemental ditch service at no capacity, no connection fee. And you weren't charged unless the water was there. It was marketed heavily through all the ditch customers on all the ditches, and we had 18 customers sign up. Of those, we have 8 left. As soon as we started charging them a bi-monthly rate, they left, including the board member who was there. So I get very concerned when you throw out a goal of 50 per year. I don't think we've added 50 ditch customers since TUD came into existence. If we seriously want to go to that, I know at one point, I think Eric's staff did a look. We came up with right now there's 600 ditch customers. We identified a total possible universe of about 600 people that could be approached and signed on. So even if we get those 600 at what they're paying right now, and the number of service orders, and the number of ditch tenders, and some other things, I think there's some things we would want to address first. First and foremost, we have a separate capacity fee for ag and non-ag. So if we think most of these people are going to be irrigation customers, we need to update the capacity fee charge. What it is right now, we haven't done it since 2012, I think, or 15. So we should do that. And, you know, is there a justification? Should it be a different number? What should it be before we would ever aggressively market this to existing customers? The second one is, I think we have to address the ditch rates. Ditch rates are insufficient. Even if we added 600 customers, they'd still be insufficient to cover ditch costs. So I think those two things need to be addressed before we even start to think about, you know, like I said, going out there and trying to do that. If the goal becomes to increase customers for the reasons you did out there, I think we need to look at treated customers and say, do we apply the same thing to people who have wells? Do we go out and actively start promoting development? Do we sign up people who are on well systems? Do we do that? This year is the first year since I've been here, the ditch customers used, their water consumption increased over last year, or treated decreased. So now it's gone from a 40-60 to, I believe, a 42 or 52-48 or 42-50, you know, whatever that works out. So those are just some key components, I think, in the discussion, and from what I've heard there, for what it's worth.
Thank you. So what would be a realistic number? 2 a year?
I don't personally, I don't think we have a goal or we make a priority of increasing the customers until we address, it's gonna take a tremendous amount of effort and expense. I think we got a lot of other things, especially talked about ditch water quality. I think those are some of the things that, you know, and we got a whole lot of other things obviously going on that I think in my mind kind of take priority over this. Yes, it should be part of the strategic plan. If that's what the whole board thinks, increasing number of customers, then we see how that looks. But I just think it's a little premature until we revise the capacity fees and we address the rate structure. And then we know that better. You know, I'd hate to sign somebody up and then all of a sudden, you know, their rate's going up 3 times or something like that. And you didn't tell us about this. Or again, what are we going to charge as far as a capacity fee, whether they qualify as ag or they don't qualify as ag in there. So.
Appreciate what you say, and it's you know, I would like to get over this hurdle in some way because, you know, and I was here when that director wanted that water, but right now we have a county that has extreme heat, is drying up, has sensitive and endangered species, has biological connectivity with a historic system, has folks that are able to keep their gardens green like me. And I see other people that are also on the ditch, that go, why aren't more people on this? We're really helping keep our environment hydrated, keep our soil living. It's, Steve, I really do appreciate that there, of course, are many parts and pieces for this. But there is a very scary time right now in our environment here. And the relationship to our water is changing. And the relationship of the work and the services that water does on our behalf are we are taking notice of the importance of water, of this system. So if there is a way to address the rates, and you're not the only one that's not happy with the rates. And, for years, I had $11, it was low for that, and I had the water. But now I feel like I'm spending more of my own well water flushing and getting very, very little good water out of the system anymore. So when I look at the expectations of ditch customers for good quality water, it's declining. So I'm looking at ways to get more people on. It's a little more money, but it will provide so much for our environment. It'll provide so much psychological, gardening is religious to some people, and in the times of COVID, it takes on a different, people can grow a good tomato, whereas before you go down to Modesto or something, well, those days may be over now. And so I just really want us to catch up with the times. And again, I appreciate, I'm not asking for a handout. I just want us to rethink the rate structure, of course, rethink water quality, of course, look at it in a larger framework, like we're looking at these too. Trying not to, you use the word aggressively market. I wasn't thinking about aggressively marketing it. There could be a lot of people that just aren't interested, but there could be, but I think that there may be an interest, and if there's not, then there's not. I think it's worth a try, though, to revisit it, because that director's no longer on the board, and his relationship with water is not part of what the times right now. So I want to take what you're saying and see how we can still fold it into a prudent approach and not a giveaway.
I can see from a water treatment manager's point of view how this would be beneficial to the water treatment aspect in that. So in the summertime, 50% of the demand is for outside irrigation, right? And so you're all during the day, you have these peaks, right? High demand, low demand, high demand, low demand, high demand, low demand. And yet the water in the ditch is constant, right? So we have to try to, as best we can, smooth out and take away those peaks if you can. So I can imagine if, snap your finger and all of that outdoor watering was on the ditch, at least from a water treatment plant, he's got a flat line, it's easy money for him or that person. But does now this happen to the ditch? And how troublesome would it be to maintain the right amount of flow in the ditch to meet the demand, all of the demand, including the non-consumptive benefits, without having too much or too little? So I'm just trying to go through my head how this would really work. So, and I don't have it solved in my head yet, but I'm really curious about, and what Antonio said, again, it's over my head. I'd like probably to sit down with you and have to explain it with crayons, maybe. So I can really get it. So anyway, those are my 2 cents. And again, we don't discourage connections today. Maybe it's an informational piece. By the way, if you're adjacent to the ditch and you're wanting to grow tomatoes and pay a fee, here's what it would take. I don't know.
With that, on the ditch side of things there too, there's areas we would have to be careful in how heavily we promote it, because we're very close to capacity on a couple of them right now. Where if you threw 10 people on there, we would struggle with water at the end. You know, we can only put so much down it, you know.
Well,
There's a lot.
in a perfect world though, right, if you put 10 people on, then 10 people are taken out of the ditch and
It was, but it would have to be strategically
Yeah.
placed, right?
I said ideally, I know that's a
Yeah.
perfect world, and we're not in that.
Yeah,
perfect world because it's a crappy maintained ditch, yeah.
I have a question for Antonio, because we do have this policy, again, this current board didn't develop this policy on making not exactly incentivizing for ag users, but we have a very friendly program for agricultural, to encourage agricultural use of raw water, correct?
Yep.
Yes, and so how many, have you seen any uptick in folks inquiring about the ag water?
I would say this year, yes. I will say since I've been here, since 2013, only ditch connections we've done have been commercial ag. So the difference in between the fees is 17,000 capacity fee for traditional irrigation where you can use it for whatever you want, whereas it's 4,000 for commercial ag. And with the commercial ag, there's this process which we can go over if you want. And it's not very complicated. I just tell people you can have your children help you do some of the drawings. I mean, you don't need to hire people. And maybe some people literally have, because there's a lot of these are family ventures that I get.
But you have to qualify
Yes.
under these rules.
Yes. But it doesn't have to be professionally done. In other words, you want to hire an engineer or a draftsperson, you can draw a map yourself and you can come up with your own water usage estimate. I explained to them what we're looking for. So I can show you some, we'll just run through it. I got a few packets if you guys want.
Do you have up top of your head how many we've had disconnect on the ditch this last year? I'm thinking at least half a dozen.
Yeah, I wouldn't say quite that much. It might be.
It seemed like it slowed down.
Yeah, because we kind of went up to 596 and then
Yeah.
it dropped to 587.
Did we gain 4 this year, 3 or 4?
I got a handful that have kind of
Stayed.
Yeah, but I rarely get, I think maybe Jamestown Vines, that winery was probably maybe one other one that were kind of larger scale commercial ag. Most of them are sort of, mom and pop, they're gonna do a YouTube channel, farming show or something.
Yeah.
That's how I kind of feel about it, because they're fairly small, but enough to where it would tax a well, and so raw water makes sense, so. But let me just show you.
I mean, we need to update this.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that's a
We don't need
substantial break.
Calculation. Right, and it's for twice as much capacity, so for commercial ag, you pay 4,000 for 10 acre feet of capacity, you pay 17,000 for 5, so it's a lot more.
So why are we penalizing people, just that want home irrigation versus
Because
I
that's
think
the
we're
actual
not
cost.
penalizing them, we're incentivizing ag use, not penalizing.
We're giving away the ag.
Yeah, I don't think there's a good cost nexus here
so
at
we're
all.
just, that's interesting, so we have incentivized, well, it shows me that, we did it somewhere.
Yeah, that's true.
Honestly, I'm surprised, I've never gotten the sense from any of the applicants that these are people who come from like the ag community, like from the ag commission or the farm bureau, like those type of people. I'm surprised I don't see more guys in cowboy hats. Like it's usually just a mom and pop kind of family venture. It's kind of surprising to be honest.
I
Well, there aren't
suspect,
that many ag customers, I don't
I think a
know.
lot of people don't know about this.
That's just my capacity fee sheet. You can, it just kind of breaks things down in a gallon per day. The billing rates, it's just kind of what I share with people, so when they come to the counter, they can see what the monthly bill might be, how much water it actually, in terms of capacity they'd be getting, what the fee is. So I generally don't give that to people.
So I feel that right now when I look at this, and I just feel like it discourages the traditional person that wants to get on irrigation. So if I was looking, let's say I had 5 acres, and for agriculture, my cost is 4,000 to connect versus just wanting to grow personal good tomato is 17,000. I'd want to figure out.
Yeah, I wanna say
it disincentivizes traditional irrigation as much as it incentivizes someone to qualify for the agricultural rate or capacity fee, I should say. There's an actual calculation that we use to come up with a capacity fee for traditional irrigation, whereas there is no nexus or no backup information to justify the ag rate. So there is something to say 17,000. We can show you how we came up with that. The ag rate, I feel like, and I don't know, Antonio, if Eric's gone or if anybody knows the history, I'm not sure how, but it's just a substantial decrease. And, you know, I mean, it ties to Williamson Act too. You know, I know the county has that, but they might get their property tax backfed. I'm not sure how
We
Williamson Act.
actually had separate tiered rates by class of customers too. So not only did they get that, but they were getting a reduced rate in addition to it.
Right.
So this number is derived when you got the 8,900 for gallons per day. The single family residence for supply is 1,005, but that's based upon 264 gallons a day. So when you multiply the gallons and the fees in the same way, it's the same number. It's just multiplied because the gallons per day are a lot more. That's how you come up with a traditional ad.
So in order to work up to, like Steve, what you're saying, it's not just as easy as you might think, just adding a few more people here. It's that we do need to revisit our policies, and we have a ranching community that's definitely interested in revisiting some of this as well. We've got a lot of young farm upstarts that are realizing that they want to make a go out of it, you know, young families, you know, so we have more truck farms like we used to along the system. So that's kind of changing here. Our agricultural use may be increasing as we move into the west end of the county, let's say. So it just may be time, like you said, to visit several, just like this could be a noble goal, but we have some other things to talk about in addition to this. Well, we'll have to have another ditch committee to talk about more of this, because there's more and more things connected to the ditches.
Exactly, if we're talking capacity fees in general, seems like it would also need to go to the finance committee, right? Either
Yes.
buy-in or weigh-in or
Yes.
thoughts. And eventually to the full board.
We did community ad hoc committees, and we had the various interests here. Last time we reviewed the capacity fees, the city was here, people from the county, the Farm Bureau. So I don't know if that's an approach the board wants to go, but we definitely need to do it on the wastewater because we're building our new plant. And I know that the board is interested in septic fees and all that, and the septic fee calculation includes somewhat is tied into the capacity fee because they don't pay capacity, but so another way of saying, I think this would be a good exercise across the board, not just on water.
I think it's a way of really rethinking this resource that we flush our toilets with the cleanest water in the world. And everybody throughout the state is really rethinking how we use water. And I would love to pursue, Antonio, what you said, which is to remedy really a past situation, which is, well, you got a free hookup, but you gave up your ditch, so now we're gonna make you pay that $500, right? That could be an easy way to sense, to put out to sense a few people out there. If you paid what you should have paid originally for your getting on treated water and put in a backflow device, would you be interested then in using both? Is that how I hear? I mean, it could be very easy to ask.
Yeah, but I think the dollar amount you're talking, when I got here, it was $55,800, I think, when I first got here in 2013. So I don't know what it was before that, but I mean, you're talking that, a few $1,000s at least to make things right. I don't know if you just say whatever the fee was at the time, you gave up your ditch service, you have to look that up. I don't know, you got to come up with a dollar amount. It's a little bit complicated.
My head just doesn't work this way, so I gotta see numbers, I gotta see stuff, I can't track you,
But that could be a way to actually approach people with that dollar amount and see if you're interested. If there's nobody interested, then it goes away.
That's what it is, yeah. Kind of like a market survey.
Yes.
You know, see, but we gotta have the numbers ironed out first, which was Steve's point. We don't wanna tell somebody it's gonna be this amount and then change it on.
Yeah.
Or,
So Melissa, so this is a discussion,
Okay,
okay, and it just sounds like the homework, there's kind of a homework assignment for Antonio is to maybe go back and look at what that cost of giving up your connection and getting your hookup was.
Re-agendize
So-
that, like you make it.
Yeah, as a place to start.
Okay.
And then making that, maybe we might have to increase that to today a little bit, but maybe not to this point. And approach those that gave it up around the system, might be just like you said, just a beta test it.
Okay.
So no recommendation to the, we have no this is just informational.
okay, so for the committee recommendation, I can add, this item was for review and informational only, or, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and then maybe another ditch committee, we do need to talk about, how do we make Kurt's job easier? How do we protect and look into our rights as the conveyor to protect that water quality through non-ditch customers that are messing it up? So, that'll be another conversation. Don't wanna forget that, water quality. Okay. All right,
Last item.
the finale?
Yeah, can you?
yeah.
So if I could interject, if you guys really need me, I can stay, but I need to get back with the auditors. So I'll go ahead and excuse myself now, if that's all
Sure.
right.
Thanks, Dan.
Happy
Thanks
to
for
help
your
if anything comes up.
input.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
And it should,
Hop up.
yeah, it's just got that lag, you know?
Okay. So this is real and we're experiencing it here. And you may have friends that never suffered from heat exhaustion or anything and that are, ending up in the ER. They just are. So the state is how I came across this was looking at the climate action plans, okay? The county had to pass something so they can, check that box to get money and whatnot. But this is part of that also. This is, can I do this? Yeah, I can.
Yeah. Or you can use the buttons, whatever's easier.
Is it this button?
Yep.
Oh, just scrolling. Whoa,
No, that's
okay,
it.
stop.
Because it's a PDF and not like a PowerPoint, it doesn't go slide by slide.
Okay, got you. All right, I'm gonna scroll up to what really caught my eye here. Okay, so this is on, anybody can access this extreme heat action plan. The state is really taking this seriously. And it's going to affect how we look at water, how we protect water while it's out in nature, and how we use nature-based solutions to reduce extreme heat risk. So I wanted to draw your attention to, I'll back up here. In this plan are different tracks. This is just a FYI, okay? They're not, hey, let's go do this, let's write a grant, let's see if we can get, we have to see how this pans out in the state and also in the cost of doing business, but it's a real heads up for us because it's a health issue. Dogs can't walk on asphalt anymore. In Columbia State Park, they're, who knows, one step away from handing out little booties. It's really serious. So in this, what is extreme heat and what are its impacts? I won't go over this. Hopefully folks can noodle around in this themselves. Then we have this public awareness track. We've got strengthening communities and response, we go over the social resilience and, protecting our workforce is what, the water, the ice machines and all that are just terrific. But down here, increased resilience of our built environment. That would be actually, unasphalting, putting permeable surfaces in, bioswales, trees, right? So not just shopping carts can be huddled, around the only shade tree, at Timber Hills or something. And then here's track 4, and this is what I want folks, if they can, to just get familiar with, because this is what Paradise, when they burned, this is what they are looking at, are to how to utilize nature-based solutions, and we talked about this with our ditch management, how do we incorporate nature to save, a fuel management problem in the future, and how to promote nature-based solutions to reduce extreme heat risks, and support nature's ability to withstand and adapt to increasing temperatures. And just even your skip and dip program along the system, Eric, is actually really addressing this. And why this is important also is obviously goal 3, reduce heat risk to water supply and systems. Okay, so that would be to have a canopy with a temperature differential of hopefully 6 degrees, something that's measurable, that's producing oxygen, that's sequestering carbon, for an eventual offset for if we go after any state soft money, we know that we've addressed these ahead of time and incorporated in. So when I think about board direction and our strategic plan that we reviewed has marching orders in it and how we're going to do it, and the integrity is in it. But the overall goal of board direction, I would like to think of, is to say we will use nature-based solutions because they're the most cost-effective way to solve a problem, the least heavy-handed, and how we can do that. It could be as simple as I don't know, planting more trees in our TUD parking lot, or watering the ones we do have. Just, that's not complicated, but I just wanted to give you guys a heads up for this extreme heat, because as long as California does not curb the use of water, and I'm talking for huge, commercial ag in the valley, west of Highway 5, marginal lands, instead of retiring that land, they're working on retirement. We're gonna have to do things that really use nature-based solutions. And I actually think that covering the canal, even though that's a built thing, but actually tunneling it and creating energy is, in a way, a form of a nature-based solution. We've got it. How else can we think in terms of multiple benefits? And it's a water energy nexus. And instead of having all that water, which is just like dollar bills evaporating up in the air, while we starve ourselves for water here. So I kind of have a social justice thing going on here, but I see us trying to the point of patriotism, conserving water. So here, this is upon us, and I think that our crews are going towards nature-based solutions, and we certainly are, after looking at, this is the way Paradise is going after they burn, and their advice to us is to try to do some of this before we burn. So at any rate, that's all. Again, this is what the document looks like, and it would be track 4, I think would really pertain to us, but I can just see where grant opportunities are gonna come, and it's gonna be in the California Natural Resources. That's Wade Crowfoot, and he spoke at the AQUA, the last conference, and he basically said not only this, integrated resource management, nature-based, and traditional ecological knowledge of the native people, of the elders. So those are just, get familiar with it.
Thank you.
That's all I wanted to say. So it's just informational only. Very serious stuff, yeah. As we move into 100 triple digit.
Yeah.
Labor Day. Anything you want to add?
No.
Okay. All right.
We get about 20 emails, Barbara, or texts, just during our
Oh.
presentation.
Popular.
Yeah, popular.
Yikes. Yeah. They're all telemarketers. Okay, so this concludes then, it's mostly review and information, and there we go, no recommendations to the board at this time. So I really want to thank everybody for their time being here.
There was no audience? Is there anybody on Zoom?
Director Murphy. Right, and so because.
Yeah, yes, you can, I'll give it.
Right,
No,
but it doesn't mean we can't say hi, we can say hi.
Hi, Lisa.
You can't answer, okay. All right, well, that concludes our meeting, then the meeting is adjourned at 11:30, and again, I really wanna thank all you guys